I have to tell you though that after I left Edwards, I interviewed for a ShopRite, and I ended up getting the manager's position in the ShopRite in Kearney, um, which was a single store ShopRite. ShopRites were individually owned; it wasn't a corporation, which I liked. Even though it was a corporation as one store, it didn't have tons of supervision, tons of bosses coming in, and I was hired to manage the building to the best of my ability. Um, and it was an interesting place. It was an eye opener. Um, I had been in some stores that had done some business, and I had been in a couple of stores where I did $700,000 or $800,000 a week when I worked for Food Town. But shop rates are another whole animal, and some of those stores, um, sales wise um, and price wise, put us to shame. Their prices were cheaper, um, and they sold a ton of product, and it's a whole different operation. And it took me a couple of years to adjust to that type of volume. But I went there, and the store was um, in the middle of a remodel. Had just had an addition put on, and hey, they built a liquor store that's attached to the building. There had been a little liquor department inside the store before I got there, and they actually extended the building on one end and made the liquor store there, and used that room to remodel that supermarket. So there was some interesting times, and I put a lot of time into that store. And there was a lot of good times, and there were some really good people that worked there. After I finished building my crew, was when I got there, there wasn't a lot of talent there. There were workers, and they were nice people, um, but they couldn't do what I needed. I thought what I needed them to do. And since I was hired to help turn that store around, um, I went in there and really changed some things. Um, the store was doing around $700,000 a week when I got there, and I was told by the owner that he had lost $400,000 the year before, and I said, well, I thought that's unacceptable. We don't do business to lose money. So we're going to have to work on that. And a lot of it just had to be with how they did business, and how the workers worked, different things that they implemented or they didn't implement, and the follow through on getting the things done. Um, so you just had to teach them about the wheel again. And once you figured out how to teach them how the wheel worked, um, and the remodel was finished, and we started our my whole next chapter, whole next chapter. It was a different clientele. It was the first of the month clientele. So the first week of the month, the store would be extremely busy compared to the last week of the month, which by then they were out of their food stamp money and their welfare money and the Social Security money, and times were tight at the end of the month, and were really good in the beginning of the month. And you had to prepare for it to the point where the store had 20 registers. On the first of the month, you could end up with 70 carriages of returns. The people were absolute slobs. The customers were slobs. They didn't care where they left stuff. If your food stamp card didn't work, um, they would just leave entire carriages of groceries in the store and walk out. It took a big getting used to get used to that type of clientele. And to be honest with you, I don't know if you ever really get used to it. The theft was outrageous. We stealing batteries left and right, chasing them down the street, finding them hiding in the Kmart next door, stealing stuff there too. They would rob us, rob at the Kmart. I'd be following them down the street on a portable phone, calling the police. I'm chasing this shoplifter down this way. It was such a different animal, such a different animal. You know, one time we had a guy come in and steal Red Bull, and he had a bunch of 12 packs of Red Bull, and he's running down the street with them, and he can't run with them, so he's pushing the carriage first, then he takes him out of the carriage, and he's running down the street, and he's dropping the 12 packs along the way because they're too heavy for him to carry as he's trying to run away from the people that are chasing him. He ends up jumping into the Passaic River and swimming to the other side. And by the time he got to the other side, the police were sitting there waiting for him. So he ended up getting arrested then. We had another guy that used to come in and steal TVs and VCRs and things. And we had spotted him with the camera system. And one day I looked over the top of the office and looked down at him. And he had just walked in and was, looking to see what else he could steal then. He saw that I recognized him and he took off, goes running, and we're chasing him. And Augie, my Appy manager, he's chasing after him. He jumps in the back of a pickup truck of one of the other employees, and that guy's he's riding it like a Roman chariot down the highway, down the street, chasing this guy who's running down the sidewalk. But the criminal element there was totally different. That guy, he got to the gas station at the corner, knocked the customer over that was putting air in his tires, stole the guy's car, drove down the wrong side of the street onto the sidewalk and everything to get away, and did get away. And unfortunately, people didn't get hurt too badly there. Although we had a couple stabbings in the place. We found that guy sleeping in his car. The police found him sleeping in his car a couple of weeks later over in Newark and arrested him. And then about a year later, I get a lawsuit in the mail. He decided he was going to try and sue me because I chased him because he was a thief. And he had nothing else better to do with his time while he's sitting in jail. So he decided he was going to bring a lawsuit against me because he wouldn't be in jail if I didn't chase after him, if I hadn't recognized him as being a thief of stealing other products from us. But yeah, the balls of some of those people and how they thought. There was a guy one time trying to get out the door the wrong way, and my Appy manager, Augie, was on the other side of the door, and they're having a shoving match through the door, and the guy reaches through, he's got a screwdriver, and he stabs Augie in the back with the screwdriver, and it pierced Augie's lung. So we ended up catching that person, and Augie ended up going to the hospital for having a collapsed lung. Another time there was a guy stealing DVDs. He was in one of the aisles, put a DVD down in his clothes, and he was seen, so they asked him to come upstairs, and so he didn't think anything was going to happen to him. It was just a DVD, and sure enough, when they told him that we prosecute all shoplifters and everything, he wanted to speak to his mother, and his mother was downstairs shopping, so I went down to get her. Meanwhile, he's got a gun that nobody knew that he had, and he pulls the gun out, and he says, "You're not putting me in jail. I just got out of jail. I did 7 years in jail, and I just got out, and you're not putting me back in there for stealing a DVD." And they're yelling upstairs that he's coming down, and I'm downstairs talking to his mother, and I'm saying, "Well, I'll hold the door closed. I'm at the bottom of the stairs." And they're going, "He's got a gun." And I said, "I'll open the door and let him out." And I opened up the door like a good little chauffeur would do, or a doorman would do, and he grabbed his mother's keys out of her hand and went out, took off in his car. And a couple of weeks later, he turned himself in Virginia, and I guess he went back to jail. But those are the type of things that happen in the retail business, working in the supermarket.